I'm going to go full doomsday, sort of end of history type stuff. We all end up on UBI, the end of aspiration, incredibly depressing. Where is this going? Is it going to be capitalism eating itself, or does it end up being something much better than the world I've just described?
Sure. So, well, first, thanks for including me.
You don't have to thank me for that.
I was about to say. Good morning.
So if we take a step back, really the way we're looking at how AI changes virtually everything we do is it's probably the third transformational wave that we're experiencing. The first one was actually the microprocessor in the 70s. So what that did was it democratized access to computing power, right? Everybody got a PC, they have a notebook, you now have a smartphone. Then in the 90s, you democratized access through the internet browser to information. So in the 70s, democratized access to computing power. In the 90s, democratized access to information. And even though AI is about 70 years old, really the Gen AI technology has democratized access to intelligence. So that's the real change. So now that you have access that only data scientists and quants used to have, you actually can use intelligence straight from your smartphone, leveraging all of those waves. And that's why we think, really, we're only in 1995 of this build out. So, you know, as somebody who covered parts of the internet back in the 90s,
yeah.
I've watched those cycles, and there are definite parallels with the build out. And we're only 15 months into this build out, as my colleague Vivek, who covers NVIDIA, has talked about. And it will be years, because there are different stages for that.
So we've got to identify winners at different stages. And as you know, through the internet, if it's 95, identifying who the ultimate winners would be in that period was actually difficult. So you just bought everything. And a lot of people bought the wrong things. What do you do now? What's the best approach? How do you think about who wins each stage of each cycle?
Sure. So if you think about the stack of technology for AI, the first thing that you have to do is you actually have to build these models so that you can leverage the AI having applications on top. So that's what you're seeing right now. You're seeing the chips, the servers, those are being bought and those are being deployed. And at this point, the models are still growing. So that build out is still happening because the applications that we want to use on top of them aren't where we want yet, right? The average intelligence is probably of a 15-year-old intern. And, you know, it's great to have an infinite number of 15-year-old interns, but but you definitely, you know, want something more intelligent over time. So you still need more processing power. You need to upgrade those models. And those models, though, are benefiting the chip companies, the server companies, as my colleagues Vivek and Wamsi talked about, but also the public cloud companies where those models are sitting, right? And so that's why we like Microsoft. That's why my colleague who covers the internet likes Amazon, likes Alphabet, because those guys are benefiting because they're actually hosting those models. And that's very different from the internet, right? Because in the 90s, the internet was built using debt, right? All of those telecom companies raised all of this debt. And the companies that were doing applications on top of that had no monetization models. When that stopped, those companies went bankrupt. What's different here is these models are being built out of cash flow of the public companies, not debt, and the private companies are using equity.
I love this. John asks, are we facing the end of times? You say we've democratized access to intelligence. I mean, this is basically where we're at. Here, I just want to know, to put a bow on all of this, there is a belief that some of the broadening out in the equity rally is going to stem from productivity gains tied to artificial intelligence. Are you essentially saying it is too soon? It is going to take years before we see it percolating out to the rest of industries? Or are you possibly seeing the democratized access to intelligence making our world better?
I think over time it will make our world better. I think the expectations were that things would get better immediately, which it will take time, right? Because what has to happen is corporate adoption needs to take a deliberate approach because they have to understand the models. If you're a regulated industry, you have to explain the biases within the models before you can really use them, before you can roll them out. So it will take a few years, but what we did was, we have the #1 research team on the street. I surveyed our analysts to figure out exactly what they thought their sector would benefit from AI over the next 3 years. And on average, we expect a 250 basis point operating margin improvement which is $65 billion annualized savings for the S&P 500, over $100 billion of savings a year.
Wow.
Globally. And that could be conservative because that was a survey that was done a few months ago without all of the applications that are coming out now. So we definitely see it hitting over the next 3 years. So it won't be a straight line up, but we definitely see the line moving up.